Good morning. This is English 7 for Tuesday, April the 14th, and we are on page 188 as we have started a new chapter, and really a very easy chapter for us of prepositional phrases. It's very easy because we learned our prepositions way back at the beginning of the school year. I loved watching your little videos yesterday of you saying your prepositions for a couple of reasons. One, I'm thankful that you know them. And two, it was so nice to see your little shiny faces. I miss you very, very, very much. And it made me feel a little closer to you. Some of you haven't turned them in yet, so get those in today. That is a grade, so it's an easy grade too. So turn those in to me. All right, just send me a video of you saying them. We did exercise A on page 188 yesterday in talking about prepositions. Now remember, there were a few things about prepositions that we learned. We said that a prepositional phrase has to begin with a preposition and it ends with an object. That object has to be a noun or a pronoun. Because it's an object, it has to be a person, place, thing, or an idea, right? So remember, every prepositional phrase begins with a preposition and it ends with an object. That is going to be so super important for you tomorrow. Now, I had you review your prepositions yesterday and send that little video to me. If you haven't, make sure you do again. But I want us to look at one thing back on page 187, and that is our compound prepositions. Compound prepositions are just what it says. When you were in, first grade probably, you learned about compound words, two little words put together to make one big word. It made you feel like you were so smart because you could read these words that had all these letters in them, and it was really just baseball. But, and your teacher was so sweet. She didn't tell you that it was two simple words. She made a big deal of the fact that it was two little words squished together, but it made you super, super smart. Well, compound prepositions aren't any different. It's just two little words squished together to make one preposition. Look at page 187 for me. Here are your compound prepositions. We have not memorized these yet. So you need to start memorizing these, okay? Let's look at our frequently used prepositions, okay? Ready? Here we go. Say them with me. I feel silly enough saying them to an empty room. You can say them to an empty room too. Okay, here we go. Aboard, about, above, across, after, along, skipped. Against, along, amid, among, around, at, before, behind, below, beneath, beside, between, beyond, but, by, down. During, except, for, from, in, inside, into, like, near, of, off, on, over, past, since, through, throughout, to, toward, under, underneath, until, unto, up, upon, with, within, without. Now those are the prepositions you already have memorized. And hopefully you said them with me. All right, you didn't sit there like a big bump on the log. All right, now let's look at the compound prepositions. You will have to memorize these. You're going to have to be able to identify them in sentences. This is the crust of this chapter, okay? So let's read them together. Ready? According to, as for, because of, by way of, except for, in front of, in spite of, instead of, on count of, out of, regardless of, and with regard to. Okay, all of these are two or more words put together to make a preposition. Let's read them one more time. Ready? According to, as for, because of, by way of, except for, in front of, in spite of, instead of, on count of, out of, regardless of, with regard to. Now, each one of those, if it has, and it's followed by a noun or a pronoun, then it is serving as a prepositional phrase. Okay? Prepositional phrases begin with a preposition, they end with an object. Prepositional phrases can act like two different things in our sentences. They act as a what? They're a phrase, so they act as adjective phrases when they describe a noun or a pronoun, or they are an adverb phrase because they describe a verb, adjective, or another adverb. When a prepositional phrase describes a noun or a pronoun, it is an adjective phrase, and therefore it answers what questions, guys? Say them with me. It tells us which one, what kind, how much, how many, or whose. If a prepositional phrase is describing the verb, an adjective, or another adverb, then it answers the questions what? Where, when, how often, to what extent, why, or under what condition. Those are my adverb questions, all right? Now, I want you to look at page 188 again, and let's look at exercise B. You're going to underline the prepositional phrase. I don't want you to underline it. Mark it out and underline. Put little parentheses, because that's what we always do. We put parentheses around them. So put parentheses around your prepositional phrase. And then it says to circle the actual preposition and to put a box around the object. The object will always be a what? A noun or a pronoun. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea, and a noun is a word that takes the place of a noun, such as he, she, it, each, every. Okay? Let's look at the first one. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. What's your prepositional phrase? In the beginning. What's the preposition? In. What is the object? Beginning. Number 2, sing unto the Lord a new song, and his praise in the congregation of saints. Prepositional phrase. Unto the Lord in the congregation of saints. Look at your first phrase. What's the preposition? Unto. What's the object? Lord. In the second prepositional phrase, in the congregation, what's the preposition? In. What's the object? Congregation. Look at this third prepositional phrase, of saints. What's the preposition? Of. What's the object? Saints. Number 3, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. What's the prepositional phrase? Of the Lord, in the desert, for our God. Okay, look at the first one, of the Lord. What's the preposition? Of. What's the object? Lord. Look at the next one. In the desert, what's the preposition? In. What's the object? Desert. And the last one, for our God, preposition is for, and the object is God. Excellent. The king's favor is toward a wise servant, but his wrath is against him that causeth shame. What's the prepositional phrases? Toward a wise servant and against him. In your first prepositional phrase, what's the preposition? Toward. And the object? Servant. In the second one, against him, what's the preposition? Against. And the object? Him. Him, by the way, is a what? I know it's an object, it's a pronoun. Okay? He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Prepositional phrases are in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. So you have 3. In the first one, what's the preposition? In. What's the object? Paths. In the second one, the preposition is of, and the object is righteousness. And the next one, for his name's sake, the preposition is for, the object is sake. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. What are your prepositional phrases? Between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. Okay, what's the preposition? Between. What's the object? The woman. This is a compound object. Okay, what about the next one? Between is our preposition, and seed, seed are the objects. Again, it's a compound object. Look at the next one. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I love this verse. I read it many times in my Bible, but recently I read it to you guys as part of a father's promise. Remember, that is the promise that Rudy's dad had, that God would see him to the end of the war. I always love that application. Okay, so our prepositional phrases: in the secret place of the Most High, under the shadow of the Almighty. Okay, what's the preposition in the first one? In. What's the object? Place. In the second one, of the Most High, the preposition is of, and high is our object. Under the shadow, under is the preposition, shadow is the object. Of the Almighty, of is the preposition, Almighty is the object. Tonight for homework, I want you to do 8, 9, and 10. Please read the directions of your online homework very carefully. You must be careful to type them exactly the way Mrs. Turner did. If I put a comma, you must put a comma. If I put a space, you must put a space. If I put a colon, you must put a colon. If you do not, the computer will mark it wrong. Okay, so you must type it exactly like I did on your online homework. All right, the quiz today is simply a very simple, kind of a random review of things. Some of the questions are from way back at the beginning of the book, but we're starting to prepare already for our finals that are coming up at the end of our school year. Of course, that's not until May, I understand that, but because I don't have you here to talk with, I don't want to wait till the last minute to review. So you're going to see on some of your homework, on some of your daily quizzes. Some of the daily quizzes count as homework grades. Some of the daily quizzes count as quiz grades. Most of them count as quiz grades, okay? But there are some that will have more review from way back at the beginning that unless I've gone over it, like today's, I think it's today's, maybe it's tomorrow's, one of them doesn't, I haven't gone over a lot of the terms. It's just to see if you can remember them. Don't panic if you don't remember them. We'll still review. It's probably a homework grade in that case. But that's just to help me make sure I know exactly what you remember, so I know what to go back and really drill in before we take our final exam that'll be coming up. Now, we do have a couple of tests before then, but again, I don't want to wait to the last minute. So tonight, I want you to finish these 3 sentences in this, and then do your online homework and take your online review quiz. All right, guys, I miss you, and I hope you're having a good day. I hope you, I know you can't get out and socialize, but I hope you are getting outside at least a little bit to enjoy the weather. Mrs. Turner's been very sick a couple of days, but I'm feeling better and I plan to enjoy some of this beautiful weather we have out. All right, miss you. Have a good day.